Blog Talk Radio.
Stevie B's Media Production is a part of the Shellcaster Network.
The proclamation of the gospel of Jesus Christ by members of the Churches of Christ. With your host, Stevie R. Butler. You're listening to What a Word from the Lord radio show.
You are my protector, and you are my provider, and my deliverer. There's no other help I know. You are my protector, and you are my provider, and my deliverer. There's no other help I know. I really love the Lord. I really love the Lord. You don't know what He's done for me. Gave me the victory. I love Him. I love Him. And I really love the Lord. I really love the Lord. I really love the Lord. He saved my soul from sin. Loved me again and again. I love Him. I love Him. I really love the Lord. And I know how sweet He's been. My deliverer, there's no other help I know. He's such a loyal friend. And on the cross, He bled and died. And now in Him I abide. I love Him. Yes, I love Him. And I really love the Lord. You don't know what He's done for me. Gave me the victory. I love Him. I love Him. I really love the Lord. You don't know what He's done for me. Gave me the victory. I love Him. I love Him. I really love the Lord. You don't know what He's done for me. When I think about His matchless grace, gave me the victory. I love Him. I love Him. I really love the Lord.
You're listening to What a Word from the Lord radio show.
Good evening, wherever you are in the world listening to this radio broadcast. Stevie B's Media Production presents What a Word from the Lord radio show. I'm your host, Stevie R. Butler. This radio show is being broadcast from Stevie B Media Production at the Carolina studio in the great state of North Carolina. Ladies and gentlemen, we are just grateful for the privilege to bring you a program where we as Christians and members of the Churches of Christ can share our faith and preach and teach the glorious gospel of Jesus Christ on a weekly basis. If you'd like to contact us while we're on the air this evening, just give me a call to the live show at 713-955-0508. If I have any questions or comments for my co-host or any of my special guests on this radio broadcast, you can send your emails to my new email address, butlersteve1009 at yahoo.com. You can call Stevie B Media Production at the Carolina studio at 910-491-6405. Now, again, this program is brought to you by members of the Churches of Christ. And if you need any assistance in locating a congregation in your area, please feel free to contact us. Now, folks, get out your Bibles and study along with us here on What a Word from the Lord radio show.
You're listening to What a Word from the Lord radio show.
Every fourth Tuesday of the month, my co-host, Kelli Fletcher, she serves with the Livingstone Church of Christ there in Indianapolis, Indiana. So enjoy your listening experience. Enjoy the show. All yours, Kelli. Take it away.
This is Terry Jackson, and you're listening to A Talk with My Sisters on What a Word from the Lord radio show.
Good evening, everyone. You are listening to A Talk with My Sisters, also known as The Kelli Fletcher Show, on Stevie B Media Productions, What a Word from the Lord radio show. I am your co-host, Kelli Fletcher, and I am a member of the Livingstone Church of Christ in Indianapolis, Indiana. Should you have any questions during tonight's show, please send an email to butlersteve1009 at yahoo.com. So the discussion for tonight is on a pretty heavy and serious topic, human trafficking. Human trafficking is not just something that happens in other cities or countries, but it can happen in our country, in our city, and in our neighborhoods. Tonight's discussion will provide information and awareness to this very real issue. Our special guest for tonight is Beverly Mason from Kingsley, Terrace Church of Christ in Indianapolis, Indiana, and Ruthie Reyes. Thank you both so much for being here tonight. I truly appreciate your presence. Before we get started, can you please introduce yourself and share a little bit about your background? Beverly, if we can start with you.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I am Beverly Mason. I am a licensed mental health therapist. I work with clients with addiction, human trafficking, domestic violence, some of your serious mood disorders or personality disorders. In addition to that, I also work with families who are involved with DCS. And so been doing that for approximately about 20 years. Wow. That's one of the things that I enjoy, and part of that work comes with, human trafficking. Met Ruthie doing that work, and we've been able to be trained in an area called My Life, My Choice, which talks about teenage victims who have been trafficked and what to look for and how to notice signs of a trafficker. So thank you for having this outlet for us to be on tonight where we can discuss human trafficking, because typically it is a subject that most churches try to avoid. And so we are excited to be able to share some facts and statistics with you all tonight. And I'll let Ruthie introduce herself.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Ruthie Reyes, and I am I'm a chaplain right now for hospice patients, but I also work with DCS clients that are dealing with the topic that we are speaking about today, human trafficking, but also with substance abuse and domestic violence also. Good to be here. Thank you.
And thank you both so much. And I appreciate the background and the expertise that you share. So we'll go ahead and get right into it. And again, if your response takes a little longer than others, then that's perfectly fine. There's no time limit on how long you respond. So let's kind of start with the definition of human trafficking. What is human trafficking? And Ruthie, if you want to answer that question, I'm sorry.
Human trafficking is when it doesn't matter. There's no age. We have children as young as 7 years old, all the way to their 40s and 50s that are being exploited by different adults, different people, male or female. And what they're doing is they trafficking. So we have trafficking for sex trafficking, but we also have labor trafficking, where they bring a group of people and they make them work in an area and pay them low wages. And what we're dealing with here mostly in our city of Indianapolis is human trafficking, where we have young girls just struggling and dealing with this. And one of the things that I have come to realize here in the city is that some of these girls that are being put out here are really put out by their own family. Because if there's a parent that is being deported or has been deported back to their country, the mom has stayed here by herself with a large group of children that they have and have no skills, no ability to speak the language. They might come from, another country that doesn't necessarily speak Spanish, but they could speak Swahili, French. It doesn't matter. And these mothers are desperately trying to support their household because now they don't have that husband in the house that was supporting them. So they use their teenage daughters also in the sex trafficking. And it's very sad. Some of these girls end up getting pregnant. Some of these girls are just, their life becomes to be just a squirrel, just, all over the place. They drop out of school. They're no longer interested in, teenage things. All they do is adult things, and is a really hard position to be in, because that's the way these people, the men or the ladies, get you in, is by befriending you and doing things for you and giving you a lot of things that you necessarily would have not gotten at home with your parent. It's very manipulating and also very attracting to young girls that don't have, or young boys that don't have anything. So it doesn't really matter what color you are, what age you are, what race you are, what religious beliefs you have. That doesn't matter. When someone is getting close to befriending a person to start then what we call in human trafficking, start grooming them to start being part of it, sometimes it could take them some months to groom that person, because they need to really, really get that person to trust them and really come into their world.
Right.
So human trafficking is just a lot of different things, and people don't realize that this is going on in our city, and it's all over the United States.
Yeah. Beverly, I've seen the term trafficking in persons. What does that mean?
So it's what Ruthie just described is where they move people. And so one of the things, so I want to go back just a little bit, and then I'll come back to that question as well. So when we look at human trafficking, and like the legal term of what human trafficking is, there's certain elements that have to be present in order for a person to be charged criminally with human trafficking. And when we look at that, what is law enforcement looking at in order to be able to charge someone? And the way they define, there has to be these three elements that are present, and it has to be force. There has to be force, fraud, or coercion. And so we look at that in, what is present when this is happening in order for it to meet the threshold of human trafficking. And so we look at what action is this person taking in order to, to secure this person. So we look at trafficking in persons. So it could be from, the action can be recruiting, where you have a person recruit people in order to get them to go along with this. It could be where they just transport people to places, but they didn't actually recruit, or, they are the person who patronizes these individuals. And so they look at their actions themselves in order to see if this is an offense they could be charged with. And then the means in which they do it. Are they forcing them to do it? Are they promising them something? And then, are using fraud or coercion to do that. And that element has to be present in both of your labor trafficking and in your sex trafficking. And so the threshold is the same regardless if it's sex or labor. And then trafficking in persons just simply means that I'm selling people. That's the bottom line. I'm selling people. And so what you have is a lot of people who were drug dealers. It's pretty high risk to be a drug dealer. You got to go into certain areas. You got to carry certain amounts of dope. You got to be able to move product, pick up the product, and all of that comes at a high risk in order to sell drugs. However, what most of them found is that in order to traffic persons, it's much less risk. How many times have we walked past people, a male with, maybe 3 teenage girls? That wouldn't necessarily raise my eye. I wouldn't necessarily think anything opposed to, they're just all walking together. Or how many times have we been in hotels and we see young girls who probably are not of age to rent a hotel room for themselves, and there's just, they're just there with this one male. Not all the time would it raise concern. And so what we find is if I'm trafficking in persons that most of the time they're using the internet to, solicit people, pictures go up, people click on pictures and you get a list of, how much things cost when you meet at this hotel. So trafficking in persons just simply means that I'm selling. I am selling this product, this sex product, through these men or women, because it's not, always women who are trafficked or girls who are trafficked.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so that having said that, looking at the victims, are there signs that a person is being trafficked, and what are those signs? Is it something that, say, if I see 3 young ladies or 3 girls in a hotel or in a mall with a man, is there something that I can see that would tell me that they're being trafficked? And Ruthie, I'll get your take or get your response, and then Beverly's.
Okay. To be more aware of your surroundings, you necessarily don't need to be an expert or have gone to training or be certified in this. You could easily just see a young lady, and I'll tell you just an incident that happened with me. I was at the McDonald's at 38th Street in Lafayette, right in front of that church, New White Skin. A gentleman comes in, and he's in front of me, and he's with a girl that's about 12 years old. He was an African-American. She looked like an Asian girl because of her eyes. And I said, well, this seems odd, but, I'm just going to, listen to what they're talking about. So when I was in back of them in line, she says, "Oh, you know, so and so told me that she kisses better than I do. That you taught her how to kiss better than me, and I don't like that." And he says to her, "Well, why you think I brought you here? This is your reward. You're doing an excellent job. Don't listen to them."
Oh my gosh.
So right then and there, I knew that this was full-blown trafficking. And what I did was I sat there. They happened to sit like 2 tables from me. I took pictures of them. I took pictures of the man. And then I went outside and I waited for them to come outside, and I took pictures of his driver's license and driver's tag in his car, the license plate, and also of the car. And I called it in. Those are the kind of clues, you know, the conversations that these grown-ups are having with these young people, whether it's a boy or girl. Yeah. Also, another clue would be a girl that's very timid and shy and doesn't want to say or talk or do anything when they're around that person because they're so afraid of that person. And I saw that in an airplane where there was this young girl and the stewardess kept asking her, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And she wouldn't say a word. And I took the stewardess to the back and I said, "I believe this little girl is being trafficked and you need to tell the police to wait when we land so they can investigate this further." You know, there's just things. Also at a gas station here in Indianapolis, you know, you'll see a white van and a guy would get out and a guy that's in the car will come and then get the van themselves, and then he goes off. Sometimes they open the back door and let the girls go into the restroom, then they come back inside the van. Why, you know, people always question me and ask me why they don't leave, why they don't run. Well, it's very difficult if this person is the one that right now is providing for you.
Right.
Absolutely everything that you need. And these are young girls that really, really, you know, look at this person as I did. I saw this person that I was with as a God that was saving my life because I was living in the streets. So there's just different you know, ideas and different beliefs that people, you know, if they see, you know, mixed couple, whatever the fact might be, necessarily that's not or would not be somebody that's being trafficked. But just pay attention. Listen if you can to the conversation. You know, watch their body movement. If you see that the girl's terrified, you know, something has to be wrong. There's something not you know, not right. And it's very scary for a young person to come to a total stranger and say, "I need help." It is. It's very scary.
Yeah.
So, Beverly, if you could come in.
Yeah. So, Ruthie pointed out quite a few of the red flags that we would look for someone being trafficked. One of the ones that is for youth that is the most what word I want to use, that is the most noticeable is a youth who is a chronic runaway. Someone who we get her home or get him home, and then they're right back out the door. They just won't stay. Well, in most cases, what happens is they're surviving out here some kind of way. And so when we have, you know, before we go and look and save the world, we can look at within our own families. And if we have young people who are, you know, they're running away and they're staying gone weeks, that more than likely they've had to do something to survive out here. Somebody's approached them in some type of way in order to get them, for them to make it. And we'll get into, you know, how they're lured into this, but a chronic runaway would be one of them that we would look at. Sometimes there's tattoos. If you see girls with, they all got the same tattoo, which is what we call branding. That is something that would be eye-opening, you know. we got best friend tattoos. Oh, okay, that's interesting. Sometimes that is just that, but sometimes it's something that is not, it could be just like the number 8 or something like that. We do see that. A youth that has excessive cash that can't explain it. You're 18 or even 21 and you don't work. So how are you coming up with all this money? What are you doing in order for, in order to make this money? Ruthie talks about, being with a dominant person. And most of the times we say males, but it could be a dominant female. It's not always a male to female thing. A lot of times to make it less noticeable, they will use women. And so you may have a woman, age 30-year-old woman with young girls, teenage girls, that definitely is not going to raise eyebrows, opposed to me walking in, a man walking in with 3 girls that may turn a few heads. And so they don't always use males in the public, so you may see this with females as well. But, it's more of having to ask for things through this person. Sometimes they hold their IDs, and Ruthie can talk more about from the standpoint of immigrants, when they hold their passports or legal paperwork. I'll let her speak on that, on how that works. And a lot of times when I travel, sometimes, having conversations with these young girls on also what brings you to, North Carolina. They don't really know that they're in North Carolina. It's like, so that will, for me, that would make me engage more. Like, you don't know any attractions here. You're not here visiting anybody. And part of what they do is move the girls from around through a highway. So 70 is going to take you to different states. And so 65 is going to take you to different states. And they move based upon how those highways flow. And so these girls don't necessarily know where they're at or anything about Indiana, but they're just here. You often see it at big events. So whenever you see the Super Bowl, the NBA playoffs, the Indy 500, all those type of big events, you can guarantee your human trafficking is very big during this time. But I will let Ruthie touch on it from a standpoint of when you have an immigrant and they're being trafficked and how that looks as far as their ability to gain, their passports and their IDs and all that stuff.
Right. Okay. Ruthie?
Yes. What these men do or women do is they retain the girls or the guys' passports or resident card, and there is no way for you to find these people because most of them, especially in the Asian and Latin American countries, they're going to be illegal when they arrive here to the U.S. So they don't have no paperwork. No paper trail, no driver's license, they don't have anything. So even if they use a bank card or something, these girls are not going to have that on them. Everything is stripped away from them. They become part of, they call it a family, but they become part of that family, that particular, and you could call them pimps. You could call them, what other names, Beverly, that we've learned that they call these individuals? Because that's how they behave. They behave as pimps. The girls also see them as daddies or not.
So daddy's one you'll hear often is the word daddy.
Yeah. I saw my guy as God, and I even named my son after him, and after I realized what life I lived, it really, really hit me because I said, wow, I really thought that I was a smart young lady. I never thought that I would be caught in that. But I was. I was for almost 3 years, and what took me out of it is that I happened to get pregnant, and they don't need you after that. They don't want you after that. And I was, I could say, fortunate enough that I wasn't being sexually abused by men or nothing like that, I would just have to go out with them and dress, and they would go out because these were high-end guys, guys that worked at Kodak, guys that worked at ABC Network, because I lived in New York City. This is where I was living at the time. And these were guys with money that lived in Fifth Avenue, so nobody would think anything, and they just take a pretty young lady, to their events, their meetings, and things like that. And because the guy that I was with, he was part of the mafia, so he didn't see that people were scared of him, and he would tell them that I was just used as a trophy to move around in different locations, but he was the only one that could touch me or tell me what to do or tell me how to dress or tell me. And I saw him as a god. I saw him because I was living in the streets. So I saw him as, wow, he gave me a place to stay. He's giving me food. He's giving me money. He would give me tons of money. This was in the 80s. He would give me, $1,000, $2,000 a week to go on a shopping spree. What young person would think that is something bad? But when I learned about it, I just cried, and I became very emotional because I said, wow, I even named my son after this man. My son lives in New York City right now, and my son is always asking me, Mom, why we don't go look for him? Let's look for him. He lives in Brooklyn. I looked him up. And, I don't tell my son yes or no. I just say, no, maybe later. And it's because I want to revisit those moments, with my son, that part, which is something that I haven't really, I could say, dealt with it on front, I haven't confronted it. But in the times that I've been dealing with it, God has really helped me use this as a testimony, use this as an ability to get girls, to come home, to tell them that they would be safe, that they would have a better place, that, God loves them. They think that nobody else does, but God does. So, I was a pastor's daughter all my life. My parents were pastors for 42 years, and this happened to a pastor's daughter. And all I could remember when I was in the house of this man was, Lord, I don't know if this is right, but, find a way for me to get out of here, send me back to my parents, have my parents, because what I had in my mind is that my parents didn't love me, because that's another thing. They put you and they isolate you away from family because they become your family. They become your God, your everything. Right. So my family didn't hear from me the whole time with this guy. They didn't know anything about me, and I was young. I was, at that time, 16, 17, 18 years old. So it's very difficult when people say, why you just don't walk away. You really, really shouldn't say that for one, just like you shouldn't say that to domestic violence survivors. It's very difficult. Right. You got to be in people's shoes to understand, and empathy plays a great part in what me and Beverly do. We have to have empathy. We have to put ourselves in these children's shoes and know what they really are going through and help them come out of it, help them see that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, that their life is not over. And, I thank God that I'm in this position, and I did go, get a certification with Beverly, and we did all this research, and we went up to all these trainings, because I see how even in the ministry that I'm in, even in that area, it helps me, and it helps me as a vessel in God's hand to reach these girls and these guys.
Right. This is a lot of information, and we're just getting into it. But what we're going to do is we're going to take a break, and then when we come back, we still want to talk about some questions pertaining to victims. So we'll go ahead and take a break, and we should be back in about 3 to 4 minutes.
This may be the last time. This may be the last time, children. This may be the last time. may be the last time, I don't know. It may be the last time you hear me sing. It may be the last time, I don't know. You know that it may be the last time you hear me pray. It may be the last time, I don't know. This may be the last time. This may be the last time, children. This may be the last time. It may be the last time, I don't know. You know it may be the last time, I don't know. You know it may be the last time, I don't know. It may be the last time I walk around here. It may be the last time, I don't know. Just might be the last time I walk around here. It may be the last time, I don't know. This may be the last time. This may be the last time, children. This may be the last time. It may be the last time, I don't know. Oh, will I see you again now? I don't know. Will I ever hold your hand? I don't know. Will we make acquaintance again down on this side? You know that it may be the last time, I don't know. It may be the last time, I don't know. Last time, it may be the last time, I don't know. Somebody ought to say it. This may be the last time. Somebody ought to say it. This may be the last time, children. This may be the last time. It may be the last time, I don't know. It may be the last time, I don't know. It may be the last time, I don't know. Just might be the last time, I don't know. We ought to treat each other right now. Be kind-hearted one to another. And pray for one another with love. Say one more time. It may be the last time, I don't know. It may be the last time, I don't know. It may be the last time, I don't know. It may be the last time.
Hey sis, this is Genesis Archer, and you're listening to A Talk with My Sister on What a Word from the Lord radio show. Peace and love.
Welcome back to the Kelli Fletcher Show, and tonight we are talking to Beverly Mason and Ruthie Reyes. Our topic of discussion tonight is human trafficking. They have already given us so much information tonight. We're just in the section of we're talking about victims, and we may run a little past an hour, but hopefully this will be good information for our listeners. So one question that I had is based on something that I read or saw on human trafficking statistics by state in 2021, and it shows, since we are in the state of Indiana, it shows that Indiana had 157 reported cases of human trafficking in 2021. Do you believe or think that number is higher due to possibly unreported cases? And approximately how many people are victims of human trafficking, do you think, just within our city? Beverly, if you want to answer that.
Yeah, I would say that that number is much higher. There's a lot that goes unreported. There's no way to know, like, an actual number of how many people are trafficked, and it's not reported. But keeping in mind that a lot of people don't report because, one, they don't know that they're being trafficked. Two, if my trafficker is providing everything for me, I have no reason to report this person, even though I'm performing, I'm making money. I have no reason to really turn this person in their eyes. And so there's a loyalty and a trauma bond that comes along between the victim and the trafficker. And so to get an accurate number, I don't know that we'll ever get one. Are we seeing more cases reported? Yes, we are, because there's more education now on what to look for and how to identify human trafficking. We have a human trafficking hotline. We have a human trafficking task force. And so there's more concentrated effort into human trafficking now, which makes our numbers higher. But to know, like, how many go unreported, I don't know that we'll ever know.
Yeah. Okay. Ruthie, a lot of times when I'm out at the mall or at the store or wherever, a lot of times I see children, small children, walking behind their parents. And the parent might be on their phone, they may be looking at the shelves or whatever, but the children are usually, sometimes behind the parents. How can parents better protect their children? Because I know when I see this, it's like I find myself trying to watch the child to make sure they're okay.
Yeah, and that's understandable. As a mother myself, I would always speak to my children before we leave the house. And would tell them, we're going to the mall, we're going to a place where there's a lot of people. I need for you to be right beside me or holding my hand or hugging me, whatever you got to do that I know that you are in my space. We're going to the store. If that's not going to happen, then we need to stay home. Speak to your children. Tell your children about things that are happening out in this world, Right. I have a niece that was going out late at night, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, and walking to the gas station because she wanted a snack at that time. And I said, you just putting yourself out here for someone just to pick you up, whether it is for trafficking, whether it's to rape you and then kill you, you putting yourself out here. So you got to see to your children that no matter where you live, you could live in Geist, you could live in Carmel, you could live, wherever. In this city that we have great places to live, Fishers is one of the ones that are listed as the most safe place to live, but things happen there all the time, so it doesn't matter. We need to educate our children, and if we don't do it on a regular basis, do it when you go out, right before you go out. If you go into, Colts games, speak to your children about that. Stick together, stay with me. I want to be where I can see you. Whether you're going to a fair, I'm funny because I raised my kids not going to the fair, so they've gone after they adults and they leave my house. Because I used to tell them, the Marion County Fair, whoever fair, we're not going to none of those things, because I always found that it was people from all over the place, and then you're like thinking, why is this person in this place? Because he would be by himself, older gentleman just walking around by himself, and I'm like, why? So I would just be more strict in that sense, where if I didn't go, my children didn't go. Until they got to the age of being a teenager. In high school, was I letting my kids then do an event where I dropped them off and picked them up.
Okay.
Other than that, that wasn't happening. And I go through the same thing you go through. You know, I watch kids. You know, I see so many moms that still don't understand. Don't leave your kids alone in the car, and your car is running. Don't leave, you know, while you're inside the store. You know, in my culture, the Hispanics, we do that a lot. I'll go to a Spanish store, and there's tons of kids in the vehicle. Yeah. You know, with infants, or they 2 or 3 years old, and they in the vehicle, and I got to go inside the store and be the mean lady and tell the people, let me hold the microphone because I'm going to call the police, and I am not. Y'all need to go to your cars and get your children. Because, you know, no matter where we live, there's always going to be evil. Always. You know, and there, you know, evil exists everywhere, and we just want to be protective of our children, even in school. Speak to them about friendships. Speak to them about who's good, what, you know, who could be bad. Let me see your friends. I want to meet them. I want to meet their parent. I want to know where they live. Get involved in your children's lives so they will not be a victim of anything, human trafficking, murder, rape, whatever it is that is going on in this world. Speak to your children. Sit with them. Be honest. Be open. If you can't speak to your children, show them movies. There's tons of movies on human trafficking. There's tons of testimonies on YouTube. And have them watch it. Sit down with them and have conversations about it. Because it is, I thought that this man was my savior. I thought this man was my God because he gave me everything. I didn't lack for anything. And why would I move? Why would I go somewhere else? You understand? So it's very difficult at a young age to comprehend that this is bad, what's going on with me, but I don't see it as bad because we don't think that way. You know, especially if it was like me, I was being rebellious against my parents because I believed that they didn't love me. They were too much in their church, and, you know, I made up all kind of excuses. But, you know, here I am as an adult, and I had to make sure that I was raising my kids the way that I needed to, communicating with them, talking with them, even if it was hard topics, you know, still talk to your children. There's too many things going on everywhere we go, for us not to speak to our children. We have to be present. We have to give them time. We have to spend time with them. It's just not all about rules and regulations and beating your children or what have you, you know, disciplining them. It's also speaking with them and speaking with love about the world. You know, we were young too, and we know how it is in the world, you know, and just have conversations. You know, I every time I get on a pulpit, whether it's to preach, Bible study, I always have to include that. And probably people don't want to hear it, but I always say, speak to your children, spend time with your children, go to the school, show up one day. Surprise them, you know. My kids used to say, why are you trying to bust me in front of my friends? And it wasn't I was trying to bust you that you was doing something. I wanted to see your everyday activities. You know, you at school 7, 8 hours a day. I'm not there. You know, so get involved with your children. Get involved with your young people. And even if you're is a young person at a store, I could be at a store and I'll say, hey, you going to school? What school you going to? If they hesitate on telling me something is wrong, why are you not in school? Oh, I got expelled. Well, there's other programs, and I speak to them about those things. But I find out more about them before I walk away from them because you never know who you could save by speaking with them.
And that's true. And before I go to Beverly and ask her to elaborate, something that you said, I remember I was coming out of a restaurant one day. I was in a strip mall, and I was coming out of a restaurant, and it was hot that day. When I was getting ready to get in my car, I saw a little boy. He was in the car. The windows were up, and nobody was in the car with him. And so I asked him, where's your mother? You know, where are your parents? And he didn't know what store she was in. So I went to about 2 or 3 stores until I found her. And come to find out, she was she was trying to get a job. But I went in there and I found out, I was like, there's a little boy out in the car. It's hot. The windows are up. Is his parent in here? And when I found out, I was like, can you please go and get your son? Bring him in with you. But it was sad to see because he was so hot and anything could have happened to him.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. But, Beverly, did you want to elaborate on how parents can better protect their children?
I think Ruthie did an awesome job with that. And, basically the bottom line is stay involved, stay engaged, and never think your child won't. Getting knowledgeable on human trafficking. I'm grateful for outlets like this because it allows for the conversation to happen. And so that's really the main thing. Stay engaged, be nosy, ask questions, and, know your child. And never say, my child won't, because I guarantee you there's a lot of parents, and it has nothing to do with upbringing, where children have been lured into things like this, and that goes back to that grooming process and, how they choose to engage these young people. And so, just stay vigilant.
Right. So, Beverly, let me ask you this, and I know it can happen to anyone, but I read that trafficking more likely happens to people of color and LGBTQ than any other demographic or group. Do you know why are these groups more vulnerable to human trafficking?
That's a good question. So when you look at the family systems, in a lot of, in our Black and brown communities, there are times where there's a breakdown in that family system, and some of us have that mentality of when you're 18, you've grown and you got to go. But if I don't have a plan and I don't know how I'm going to make it out here and I just go, I got to figure it out one way or the other. In our communities, there's high, addiction rates, untreated mental health, poverty, and all of these things impact the child. And so if I have a mom who's working 2 jobs from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., making $7 an hour, trying to pay this $1,000 rent, there is no supervision. There's no time for mom to be in the child's business to make sure that oversight is there. If I have a parent who struggles with substance abuse, the people that are allowed in my home and the people that have access to me changes from a parent who may be sober. If I have a parent who struggles with mental health that's gone untreated, and especially in our Black and brown communities, because it's still taboo to have mental health issues, or go see a therapist or be put on medication to address the mental health issue, it goes untreated, and, it at times is escalated into other things. You still have a lot of single-parent households. You have one person, one parent trying to do it all. Then you have, when you look at our counterparts of the white race. So that is why it's higher. When you look at the LGBTQ plus community, what happens when they come out? For the best thing you can do if you have a child or a sibling or anybody who comes out and identifies as gay or bisexual or whatever it, may be, support them. Because the moment you turn their back on them or you put them out or you think it's, just a phase that they're going to, there's going to be somebody who's willing to welcome them in. So the moment you put them out, they got to find somewhere. They got to find support somewhere. And a lot of times they are trafficked because of, well, come stay with me. You want to make some money? I'll show you how to make some money. And then it's the life of that. And so that's part of the reasons the numbers are much higher. There's a lot of different elements that go into that, but those are some of the main reasons we see it more in our Black and brown community.
Okay. I'm gonna kind of fast forward to traffickers because I know earlier it was mentioned it's not just men, but it's women also. But I'm curious, do traffickers span across race, socioeconomic status, and age? Ruthie, if you want to answer that one.
You're saying that is it a particular group?
Yes, ma'am. Is it when it comes to race, traffickers, are they just white? Are they black? Are they brown? Are they, from other countries? Are they rich or poor or, middle class traffickers?
Well, there is really no, we could say no identity to that, because the guy that was with me, he was a well-known guy, a Hispanic man, a professional man, had his own business, and he only dealt with people of business with a lot of money. So these were high-end, rich Hispanic men that were professionals and were, on Fifth Avenue on the radio or TV. So that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter if they have money. They do it also for the power, for the controlling, for the manipulation, whatever they could do with this young person. They get a thrill from that too. Most of them, they just, it's like a glorify the manhood, you could say, to have all these girls, and they call them daddy, and they worship them because he's done so much for them.
Right.
So it's not seen. It's not a particular race or rich or poor or profession. It's just, it could be an average Joe that you would never think of.
Okay.
And Kelli, I just wanted to add something right there real quick. When we look at traffickers, one of the biggest misconceptions about a trafficker is that it's, the white man in the white van who's riding around snatching people. That is not the image I want to do as much as we can to, get that myth out of our heads. And so a lot of our traffickers look like us. And why do they look like us? Because the statistics show that people are trafficked by people that they know. The biggest group that they're trafficked by are family members. And so we're looking at mothers, we're looking at fathers, we're looking at boyfriends and cousins. We're not looking for this stranger. And why is it those people? Well, it's a trust element. I'm more apt to trust my mother, who tells me that we need to do this because we need to pay the rent, than I would a stranger who walks up to me and run game on me. I'm a little more street smart than that. But I trust what Mama's saying. I trust that what Dad is saying, and I'm doing it for the family. And so that's an image that we need to wrap our minds around, is that does it happen with strangers? Yes, but not at all near the percentage that it happens with family members and significant others.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Dan. Thanks for clarifying that, because I'll say for me, a lot of times in my mind, I'm thinking traffickers are white or from other countries. So I appreciate you guys clarifying that question or that response for me. I want to look at maybe laws and policies. There's enough information being shared with the public about human trafficking, and if not, what should be done or can be done to shine a spotlight on this. I call it a pandemic, because to me it that's exactly what it is. But Ruthie, if you want to maybe give us some information or share
about the laws and policy, Ms. Beverly would have to take that one.
Okay. Okay. All right.
But I would speak on, we have to look at what's going on in our neighborhoods, in our cities, and be able to be present for people that are in need. And that's what, these kids are. They are in need. They are in need for someone to love them. They are in need for somebody to care, someone to listen to them. And that's why they fall into these situations, because they don't have that. But we could be advocates for these kids out here and listen to them and just ask them how they're doing. How's it going? If you're going inside a library, a store, a drive-through, take time to say how you're doing. You don't necessarily need to preach to a young person when you see them on the street, or, tell them they're going to hell, what have you. But you being kind and showing that you love them and you could, empathize with them and what they're going through, and see if you can have a direction to give them help, to see if what they need. Because some of these young people, like Ms. Beverly said, they family members or they boyfriends, or even girlfriends, and they don't see them as this is bad, what they're doing to me is bad. They see them as, a savior.
Right.
So it takes all of us. I think it's getting bigger here in the United States, and we're talking more about it. And I was in Florida like 2 weeks ago, and one of my daughter's friends told me that she got her certification on human trafficking. And she said, before I went to the training, I never knew how big it was in Central Florida. And I said, I was here in Central Florida living 18 years ago, and it was big 18 years ago. So just imagine now she's saying, I didn't even know it was so big. So just imagine 18 years now that I've been living here in the city of Indianapolis, how huge it must be. But she says that it's not so, they don't present it there as they do here in Indianapolis, which I thank God for Indiana. We're doing a fantastic job reaching to people and getting girls and getting involved with them. We getting also shelters for them and things like that. We're doing a fantastic job, but there's more work to do.
Right. Now, Beverly, so as far as the information that needs to be shared with the public, do you think that there is enough information that's being shared? And if not, go right ahead.
Go ahead. So when it comes to laws and human trafficking, Indiana is doing a much better job at making sure that, those who participate in human trafficking are prosecuted. I did want to point out just some things of clarity real quick, is to make this understood as it relates to Indiana law. A person under the age of 18 cannot consent to commercial sex. So what does that mean? If it is a 16-year-old who engages with an adult and money is exchanged, that's what commercial sex is, that's what human trafficking is, and money is exchanged or property is exchanged, that 16-year-old cannot consent to that. And so that person would be charged in trafficking, with human trafficking. So they may say, well, she said okay. The law of Indiana says that a person under the age of 18 cannot consent to prostitution, human trafficking, commercial sex. They cannot consent. And the buyer or the purchaser of that person will be charged with human trafficking. So it doesn't matter if the minor agreed to it or not. Indiana doesn't give them that leeway. As are we doing enough to get it out here? I would say we're doing better. We're doing a lot better. I am what they call train the trainer, and we have. So what train the trainer is we go through these courses to be able to go out and present human trafficking to audiences such as yours, to schools, to parents, to professionals on what to look for, what are red flags, what do we need to be talking about with our own children. And so there is a lot of concentrated effort on making sure that the public is knowledgeable on human trafficking. I know it's real big in Atlanta as far as getting it out there, and so we're doing better. We have a long way to go, but we're doing much better.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. And just one last question before we wrap up. If someone is being trafficked or it is suspected that someone is being targeted, who should they call? And Beverly, if you want to answer that.
Mm-hmm. So there is a human trafficking hotline, and so I'm going to give you guys the number to that, and that number is. Make sure I got the correct number.
I have it too,
Okay.
Beverly, if you can't find it.
Okay, go ahead, Ruthie, because I have two numbers here.
Okay. The number is 888-373-7888.
Okay, so that's 888-373-7888.
Yes.
Okay. And I also saw that there is a – go ahead. I'm sorry, Beverly. Go right ahead.
No, I was just going to share that you can text also. You can text help to 233-733, and that'll go directly to the human trafficking hotline.
Okay. So text help at 233-733, and that'll go to the human trafficking hotline. Okay. Well, I know there were a few questions that I had, but and we didn't get to, but that's okay because you guys have really given us a lot of information, and I truly appreciate your time and your expertise. There was some things definitely that I've learned tonight. So once again, I do appreciate that. So we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. I do want to thank God for another conversation on a truly necessary topic. Thanks again to Ruthie and Beverly for the information and the awareness that they've shared with me and our listeners. If you or someone you know is being targeted or is a victim of human trafficking, you have two ways to contact. You can call the U.S. National Human Trafficking Hotline at 888-373-7888, or you can text help at 233-733, and that will be directed to the human trafficking hotline. I also want to thank Brother Stevie for allowing me this platform so that my guests can share their knowledge and their expertise. My prayer is that it will be helpful to everyone who tuned in this evening. Should you have any questions about tonight's topic or comments, you can send an email to butlersteve1009@yahoo.com, or you can inbox me on Facebook, and I will be sure to forward these questions on to Beverly and Ruthie. Thank you so much for listening. Ruthie and Beverly, thank you once again for being on the show, and I'll now turn it over to Brother Stevie.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Hey, sis, this is Genesis Archer, and you're listening to A Talk with My Sister on What a Word from the Lord radio show. Peace and love.
You're listening to What a Word from the Lord radio show.
Our heart's desires must face the winds of doubt, expecting things from above and wanting now. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added unto you. The Spirit strong and grows from day to day. You see, the flesh is weak and it causes men to stray. Worldly treasures take a hold of you. Will turn the wisest man into a fool. So you gotta walk down the narrow way and walk the hill of every day and don't look back. Don't let material things keep you from going away when he comes back. We know that living life unsure is wasting time. You see, the Lord knows all, and He will ease your mind. He's told us everything we have to do. Knock, the door will be open unto you. Walk down the narrow way and follow him every day and don't look back. Don't let material things keep you from going away when he comes back. Oh, why not Jesus? Jesus loves you. He wants to save you if you just give him your love. Now, and he's the only one now. You gotta love him, you gotta love him. Jesus. Seek ye first the kingdom of God. All these things will be added unto you. You got to walk down the narrow way and follow him every day and don't look back. You see, my Jesus paid it all. Don't let material things keep you from going away when he comes back. He's coming back for you. Stop, 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 walk down the narrow way and follow him every day and don't look back. See, my Jesus paid it all. Why not do you think Jesus? Why not Jesus? Coming back for you. He deserves the love. He deserves the love. Jesus paid it all. Why not Jesus? Why not Jesus? He deserves the love. He deserves the love.
You're listening to What a Word from the Lord radio show.